Hello everyone, and welcome to this professional development on attention and engagement for students. This professional development is about increasing student attention and engagement. And the reason for that is due to the results of the needs assessment survey you took. Most of you believed that this was the area of greatest need for your school and yourselves. First off, I'd like to take a second and say thank you to all of you for completing this survey for me. I really do appreciate it. And again, the area that was deemed by your input to be the most important to receive professional development is in the area of increasing student engagement. And after what we've gone through over the past 14 months, these results really did not surprise me. It is personally an area for me that I would like some more professional development on as well. Many times this year I've found myself thinking, gosh, I've tried everything I can think of for my students, but it just does not seem to be enough to keep them focused, motivated, and engaged. This professional development is an introduction into gaining your students' attention and engagement. And just one more time, I want to say thank you. And thank you for how much I appreciate the time and effort you guys put into completing this survey for me. After administering a survey, I think it's important to share the results with your colleagues so you can show them, what you used their data for and how important it was. So looking at this graph, we can see the subjects of English and science had the largest percentage of people who took the survey, with 15 out of the 23 responses being represented by English and science. This graphic demonstrates the grade levels that participated in the assessment survey, with 8th grade having the highest representation. This graph shows in detail which professional developments are most needed according to the results of this survey. The areas of green and orange are the most concerning, as these are the extremely and very important categories that you all selected as needing the most professional development. This graph breaks it down a little bit more, making it easier to see the areas of extremely important and very important. And it's clear from this graph that 87% of you feel the need for professional developments about student attention, engagement, and motivation to be the most important. And that's the reason I'm here today sharing my presentation. According to Marzano, Pickering, and Heffelbauer, learning could not take place without engagement. So without engagement, there's no learning. And then engagement is the main component of effective teaching. So if you've engaged your students, odds are your teaching is going to be effective. And then I found this quote on the bottom, and I thought it was appropriate to add to this slide. It says, "Where my reason, imagination, or interest were not engaged, I would not or could not learn." This quote simply emphasizes the fact that students need to be engaged in order to learn. So why is student engagement so important? Well, according to Fry, student engagement is very important as engaged students are more likely to achieve academically, attend class regularly, and stay in school. Also, research has demonstrated that engaging students in the learning process increases their attention and focus, motivates them to practice higher level critical thinking skills, and promotes meaningful learning experiences. Okay, so here's an activity I would like you all to do. Let's take 10 minutes and complete this activity with your table partner. I want you to remember back to who your favorite teacher was and what about them or their class engaged you. Share and discuss your experience with your table partner, and when we are done, I will ask a few of you to share your experiences with us. Okay, I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. All right, thank you for participating in this activity. Could I have a few volunteers share their experiences about their favorite teachers and why they were their favorites? Okay, moving on. So if student engagement is so important, let's take a look at some of the elements that affect a student. I should say that have an effect on a student's attention and engagement. How a student responds to the following questions will determine their level of attention and engagement. Here are the 4 questions. The first question relates to their emotions. They ask themselves, how am I feeling? The second question relates to their level of interest in the topic. They ask themselves, am I interested in this? The third question relates to how important the topic is to them, and they ask themselves, is this important to me? The final question relates to their self-esteem or their self-efficacy. They ask themselves, can I do this? So teachers need to keep these questions in mind when planning lessons. The answers to these questions can have a profound effect on a student's attention and engagement. The step that comes before engagement is attention. So grabbing a student's attention right at the beginning of the lesson is ideal. The answers to these 2 questions will affect a student's attention and their memory. Number 1, how does this make me feel? And number 2, do I have any interest in this? If the students are feeling good about the lesson and are interested in the lesson, you will have their attention. Attention is the first step needed in engagement. Once you have a student's attention, it is time to engage them. In order to encourage and create engagement, students must have positive responses to the following questions. So number 3, how important is this to me? And number 4, do I think I can do this? Okay, so let's look at student attention a little closer. The first question relating to attention is, how am I feeling about this lesson? That is what the students are thinking. If they're bored, confused, nervous, or embarrassed, you may not get much attention and/or engagement. However, if a student is feeling proud, happy, or courageous, you will find more attention and engagement from the student. The following are elements of our students' lives that we as teachers cannot control. And we must remember that as much as we wish to, we cannot control all aspects of our students' lives that affect how they're feeling. There are elements of students' lives that are simply out of our range of influence that have an effect on our students and their feelings on a daily basis. And we need to be mindful of these. Some of these elements that we cannot control are their home environments, the amount of rest they get each day, whether they have the proper nutrition, and if they have any physical or mental illnesses. But on the bright side, there are many things we can control that affect a student's life at school and how they feel. These elements, for example, are having a positive attitude, having a good sense of humor, or building positive rapport with your students. These all influence how our students are feeling, which in turn affect their attention and engagement. So if you want a student's attention, you need to get them interested in the lesson. The second question a student asks themselves is, am I interested in this? If the lesson doesn't spark a student's interest, odds are they will not be very engaged in the lesson. And this is where teachers need to be creative and utilize different strategies to ensure that your students have some interest in your lesson. So what are some strategies to encourage interest? Well, there are several strategies we can use to encourage interest in our students. having an enthusiastic attitude, building rapport, offering timely feedback. These are all strategies that can have a positive effect on our students' interest. Due to the COVID-19, students are spending more time on the computer than ever, and many of them enjoy gaming. So why not incorporate games into your lessons? Friendly games on the computer that, don't have the potential to elevate situations. You have to remember, as teachers, we have to measure our class's ability to handle competition and controversy. And it's important that these activities do not become too vigorous or extreme. That is not what we want. Finally, class projects that are conducted in groups or individually tend to spark interest in students. It's a different way for them to be able to express and present what they know. Here's some more strategies that you can use to encourage interest in your students. You can get students up and out of their seats. That's a good way to encourage interest. Having them participate in interviewing each other or other people at the school. Displaying their work in the classroom. And allowing for exploration. These are all strategies to increase interest in students. And here we have a short 2-minute video that we're going to watch that shows a couple more ideas to encourage interest in our students. Okay, here's another activity I would like you to do. Let's think about our own classrooms. What are some strategies you use that involve games, building relationships, or active learning? For the next 10 minutes, I want you to find a partner that's from a different grade level. Share and discuss the strategies you use in your classroom with each other. And when you're done, I'll ask some of you to share your strategies with us. Okay, I'm setting the timer for 10 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you for participating in this activity. Could I have some volunteers share their strategies with us? The third question a student will ask themselves relates closely to engagement, and it is, how important is this to me? Is this lesson even important? Does it or will it affect anything in my life? If you can show them how it applies to them or the real world or lines up with goals that they have, you will have a better chance of engaging them. For something to be important to a student, it has to connect to their personal goals that they might have, whether they're academic goals or social goals. And also, if your lessons and assignments connect to the real world, students are more likely to view them as important. And finally, the students will ask themselves, do I think I can even do this? This is a big question that drives engagement for students. A student's self-efficacy can play a big role in how they engage or do not engage in a lesson. At the beginning of the lesson, they need to feel like they can do this. A student's self-efficacy comes from their own belief in their ability to do something, as well as previous successes that they may have had. When a student feels they can do something, engagement is more likely. It is when they feel they cannot do something that they become disengaged. So, if a student has had many successes in the past, they may have a higher rate of self-efficacy than a student who's constantly been struggling. Let's look at this math worksheet. Do you think you could complete it pretty easily? What if you couldn't? How does that make you feel? How can your teacher help you? What kind of encouragement or support could you use from your teacher? Now, for most of us, yes, we can do this. 2-digit times 1-digit multiplication. But what if you couldn't? Okay, how about this math worksheet? How comfortable are you with this? It's getting a little harder. Do you have to dig back in your brain a little farther to answer? How does it feel? How does it make you feel? Annoyed? Frustrated? Angry? Now, let's think about our students. Okay, now we are getting a little harder. Can you complete this worksheet without using the internet or a textbook? I'm going to tell you the truth, I can't. I've never been good at math, and this worksheet is beyond my level of comfort with math. It makes me nervous, and I feel overwhelmed just looking at it. In order to complete this, I would need a lot of help and encouragement. So we have to remember this when our students are going through the same thing. How they perceive themselves completing or not completing these worksheets is tied into their feelings of self-efficacy. So finally, how about this worksheet? Can you do this one? What if you don't know what to do? What would you do? Is there a point where your confidence in your ability has decreased? Was there a point where you felt incapable of completing the assignment? Often, students don't even begin assignments because they lack the confidence that they actually have the knowledge to complete the assignment. This is why students need to be supported by their teachers, while at the same time helping them to understand that they can complete assignments. Self-efficacy is important for student engagement. So how can we strengthen our students' self-efficacy? Well, there are many strategies that we can use to help strengthen our students' self-efficacy. By providing positive feedback that focuses on learning and their progress as opposed to the outcome, we build up a student's self-efficacy. Modeling for students or having posters or charts around the room that remind them of steps needed to complete assignments, that will increase their self-efficacy. As teachers, we must provide our students with the correct tools to help them improve their beliefs in themselves and how they approach a difficult task. When planning lessons, we need to be thinking about building up our students' self-efficacy. It's important to remember that we want to challenge students, but asking too much of them deters engagement. So activities that provide the right level of engagement are necessary. Sharing a story or anecdote with your students about a time you struggled or even failed at something will help them to understand that everyone fails and struggles at some point in their life. The goal is to teach them that failing is just a step in the process of learning, and it does not define you. Here's a short 2-minute video that we're going to watch, and it explains why self-efficacy is so important for students. All right, now I'd like you to take the next 10 minutes to write down on the note cards on the table the 4 questions affecting a student's attention and engagement. And then with your table partner, discuss the ways you can address these in your classrooms. Also, with your table partner, share and discuss how these 4 questions either supported or altered your views on student engagement. All right, I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. Okay, thank you for participating in this activity. Could I get a few volunteers to share what you and your partner talked about? Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Thank you for all your participation. Just to restate, this has been an introduction to the basics of student attention, motivation, and engagement. We will examine each of these ideas in depth at a later date. Thank you so much for completing my needs assessment survey and attending my presentation. I would appreciate it if you could do one more thing for me. If you could copy the link and complete a professional development satisfaction survey for me, that would be wonderful. This way I can take your feedback and input and make changes or clarifications to my presentation that are necessary to be better prepared for next time. Thanks again so much.